Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Against the Grain podcast. This is Josh Holbrook. I'm here with my partner, Mike Irvin.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us.
And tonight, we're going to be talking about oil and gas. As we live here in Texas, it's a major industry and something that keeps everybody lit up and full of energy around the world. And it's a pretty popular and interesting topic.
I think it touches a lot of industries that people don't realize,
There's a lot I surely don't know about it. There's a lot I found out in digging into this that's pretty cool. The history about it's cool. You know, in ancient times, people would find oil seeps and they would use that for lighting. And it was just something that was always around, but there was just so little of it that people didn't have an opportunity to use it on any kind of a mass scale. So, in the ancient times, you had fire, then you had candles.
Yeah, oil's never been easy to find, honestly. And we have a lot more technology now, but it's still pretty tough to get down there.
Yeah, if you think about it, back historically, like people weren't running around outdoors after hours. You'd be in your home after dark because it was somewhat dangerous without light.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about, right?
That changed a little bit when people started using whale blubber to make oil, and you had whale oil lamps. I mean, I remember even when I was a kid, there were still oil lamps around in some old ladies' houses and stuff. I think I even had one in my house at one point.
Yeah, man.
They're pretty cool. If you've never seen an oil lamp, you should check it out. They're awesome.
Watch some old movies.
By about the mid 1850s, though, that's when people were starting to really look into drilling for oil. There was a guy named Edwin Drake that started the first commercial oil wells in 1859, and that was in Titusville, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's interesting. Started in Pennsylvania, still really big in Pennsylvania.
It is big in Pennsylvania, but most people think Texas right away.
Right, yeah.
But it is interesting that that's where it was. And he was, what did we look at? We said 45 barrels a day or a year?
I think maybe it was 4,500 in that first year.
4,500 annually in that first year. And then it started to grow pretty quickly, as I understand. The next year, they more than doubled.
Yeah, and then just like 3 years later, they got up to 3 million barrels for the year.
So that's a pretty steep incline on the takeoff.
Huge, yeah.
In the 1860s and 1870s, kerosene was the biggest commercial product that was being produced by oil. It was a little bit of a process to make kerosene, and it was really replacing oil or whale oil at that point. And first, of course, in the big cities, it started to light street lights, and that was one of the first uses of it. Do you have anything else on the early uses in that time?
No, not really. Just that, it's crazy to think that they were using this straight kerosene because now we have all these regulations, about what it needs to be and how it has to be burnt down and to get rid of all these chemicals. Makes me think that stuff was not very safe.
Yeah, it was kerosene. Is kerosene dirty compared to gasoline?
No. I mean, natural gas is made of like propane. I mean, it's mostly propane, butane, all that stuff. But kerosene is basically a filtered out oil, right? It's crude oil, but it's been kind of just filtered out. I don't know how they did it back then, honestly. I really don't have the first clue.
Well, Mike is our resident expert here because he also runs a business as a landman, so he knows a whole lot more about the topic than me.
Which means I know a lot about the upstream sector of oil and gas, but Josh is the historian, so.
Well, speaking of the history, it got crazy with Rockefeller. In the 1870s, John D. Rockefeller co-founded Standard Oil Company and started consolidating refineries and pipelines and really bringing it all together.
Which was a huge step because before that, people were just like putting it in wash bins and transporting it in the back of their horse and buggy, right? Like, it's kind of crazy to think about.
If you've ever got a little bit of oil in your hands, it's disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, guarantee you people were getting sick from that.
I bet. No doubt. I mean, it's toxic, isn't it?
It is, yeah. A lot of this stuff nowadays, It has to be completely cleaned and burned out. That's why you see those big flares. Like if you're driving past what people call a rig, which is not really a rig, but it's like either a treatment facility or like a pump jack, which is where they're actually drilling for the well. But
yeah, the pump jacks are the ones that you see going up and down.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. But if you see a big flare of fire, that's a treatment plant. They're burning off toxic gas.
And that's always toxic gas, or sometimes that's natural gas, or
yeah. Okay, so natural gas is a lot cleaner than oil, right? So most of the green energy that we have now is powered by natural gas, but natural gas just naturally is cleaner.
Yeah.
So it's not that hard to burn it off.
Right.
But when you drill for oil, especially down in South Texas, all of it is poison. It's called the H2S gas.
Huh.
And you have to treat it on site, which is kind of rare for oil.
So don't they have those like gas alarms near all the wells?
Oh yeah. One of my first jobs in the industry was well risk assessment.
Huh.
Down south on the border, but we can talk about that later. I'll let you get to that point.
Yeah, so Rockefeller brought everything together in one massive company, but very quickly that started to get out of control. By the 1880s and 1890s, he was basically being called a monopolist, and it wasn't basically. He was America's first big monopoly guy. In some ways, I think the monopoly man on the game board is supposed to represent Rockefeller.
Well, and by 1890, we jumped from 3 million barrels in 62 to 35 million
in America.
Yeah, pretty big jump. Yeah.
Is that corresponding? It wasn't really corresponding to the rest of the world because we were the ones developing the technology, right?
Right. Early on, the Russians kind of had their hands in it, but I don't think they went after it as hard as we did. It was kind of like a gold rush over here.
And as we get later on in the story, the technology is going to be a big deal when it comes to the political ramifications of oil around the world.
Absolutely.
But in 1901, there was a huge change. There was this event called the Spindletop Gusher in Texas, and it marks the start of the U.S. oil boom. And you were telling me some things there about Spindletop, Mike.
Yeah, so there was one well in Spindletop, which is kind of the area that they were talking about, but it was called the Lucas Gusher, 100,000 barrels a day, which I'm not sure exactly how many were being produced before that, but that was a huge, huge jump. I don't think it was anything close to that. So if you have 100,000 a day, just do the math on that. I mean, that's insane.
And then modern wells can't even replicate that, right?
No, honestly, and I think it's because a lot of it's because of the regulations too. But if you get 10,000 barrels a day now, it's really good.
Some interesting things about that was at the depth of 1,139 feet. I believe the guy's name was Anthony Lucas was the guy in charge. They struck a massive reservoir. The gusher erupted, spewing an oil plume 150 to 200 feet into the air for 9 days until they were able to cap it off.
And I'm sure they were trying to cap it the whole time.
I mean, I wonder how they even capped it off. I mean,
yeah, and they were kind of wildcatting at that time. I don't think they even knew how to cap it, which is crazy, and how to cap it and keep it to where they can still draw it.
Wonder how many people died trying to do that.
Tons, I'm sure.
And where did all that oil go that was spouting out for those 9 days?
That's a good question. There's no way to know how they stored it, and I guarantee
a lot of it was lost, right? I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they wasted a ton of it.
If it hits the ground and has a bunch of dirt in it, are they still able to refine that?
Probably not, honestly. Depending. You could siphon it up, but I don't know. Would they even have the ability to do that?
With that much oil coming out of the ground at high pressure, they don't need to, I guess.
Yeah. But I should have looked into that. I don't know how they contained it. I really don't.
Yeah. They got it capped after 9 days, which just seems like an amazing feat to me if it's gushing that high.
For sure.
And that pressure had to be amazing.
Well, and I think back then they were probably ignorant, thinking, this is just going to keep going forever. We don't even need to contain this, right?
Who knows? I know it was a whole mess when it was spouting out like that, 150, 200 feet in the air. Everything was black for what? 50 yards in a circumference.
Yeah, at least.
So all the while, Rockefeller is doing his thing and monopolizing. And in 1911, the U.S. government had been after him since 1906. But in 1911, the Supreme Court ordered the dissolution of Standard Oil under the Sherman Antitrust Act for monopolistic practices.
Wow. So he had that much of a hold on the market.
Oh, yeah. And they broke the company into 34 entities. Some of them you'll know when you hear Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, Amco, Arco is one of the ones that branched off of that. Several of these I noticed ended up being owned by BP, which is like you're going to break up an American company to have them be owned by the Brits.
Yeah, and I'm sure that kind of avoided some regulations, right?
Yeah. The other thing that was part of that with Rockefeller is that he was forced to give up sole ownership, but he was able to retain his shares and be a minority owner in almost all of those. So it did not affect his wealth at all.
Right.
In fact,
rich get richer.
In fact, because he was able to retain that, and there was all these separate companies doing their own separate thing, that kind of produced an era of innovation. Those companies all grew, and so his wealth grew exponentially.
Yeah, that's why we're still talking about the Rockefellers.
Yeah, no doubt. That era right there around the dissolution of Standard Oil also coincided with the automobile boom.
Oh, yeah.
And so then Rockefeller was real good friends with Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, and then Henry Ford. And so those guys are all working together to
talk about a monopoly.
Yeah, to maneuver, all of our U.S. industries to try to further enrich themselves, which they were able to do. Some of those things that came out of that were really good for our nation. I mean, the Ford product was huge as far as
changed the world.
Yeah, the assembly lines that he created, all that kind of stuff, and American Steel was excellent, and Carnegie was a huge part of that. But when you get guys that are so rich like that, it kind of the super rich tend to try to bend things their direction to make sure that they not only remain rich but just get even richer.
Wartime is good for those people, right?
Definitely. So I don't have much in the way of more developments up through the middle part of the 1900s. Before I get to the oil crisis, do you have anything else in there that is of note during that time?
Yeah. So we were talking about, in 1889, we got to 35 million barrels. Spindletop comes around. It's 100,000 barrels a day. The next big step after that was in the early 1930s, around 1932, East Texas boom happens. And around that, in that decade, they accrued 4.6 billion barrels. So we jumped from 35 million barrels to 4.6 billion barrels.
Jeez.
So it just gets crazier and crazier. And then in the 40s, we have the first pipeline. Best way to transport it. It's in Longview, Texas, and it was 1,254 miles.
Where'd that run?
Oh, man, I had it. Big Inch is where it started in Longview. I can't remember where it ended, honestly, but 1,254 miles.
I mean, you almost think that would go down to Houston.
Yeah,
is that's.
Yeah, if you do the math. Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. I mean, you think that would be the biggest port. They do a lot of refining in Houston, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like probably where it went.
Probably. Houston, Galveston area. There's a lot of refineries in Galveston.
Is there?
Baytown area, yeah.
What would be the advantage of taking it across the little waterfront there as opposed to doing it in Houston?
I don't think they took it across. They just took it straight around the water.
Like the pipe?
Straight down, yeah.
Oh, wow. That pipe straight across, huh?
But then they had some, deep sea drilling going on around there. So I don't know if that was just kind of like a middle ground.
Do you know when they started deep sea drilling?
I do not. No. I missed that one.
Yeah, I didn't look at that really. What I kind of went back on again was like the political happenings, as I tend to lean into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I do know that, it's a lot more expensive to drill deep sea, but it's a lot more beneficial. I mean,
beneficial by volume?
Yes. I mean, 10, 20 times, if you're drilling in the right spot. But it's a lot more cost.
A lot more cost, and
involved.
there's some danger also in the Gulf because, I mean, you're talking about hurricanes and all that kind of stuff.
But the last thing on land that was the biggest breakthrough was fracking in the 80s.
Right.
Which fracking is kind of doing what we used to do, drilling, vertically and then horizontally as well. A horizontal well is where they just kind of turn it 90 degrees and go across and go underneath everything so they don't have to tear up people's land, which is a good thing. But fracking is the wellbore drill head, kind of as it goes along, it cuts fractures in the shale. And they take water. Well, it's about 90% water, and the rest is like chemicals to lubricate it. But they pump that water in, bust it up in the shale, breaks the shale apart, fractures it, and then they pump it back out. So it's a lot more in-depth process than what I just described.
And there's some potential issues with fracking. You had a lot of environmental folks that were up in arms about fracking, right?
Yeah. I don't know how much a lot of that is founded in fact, honestly. I know there's a little bit of it that can cause earthquakes in certain parts of the world. And obviously, if you bust into, somebody's water basin, you're going to have problems, right? Because you got all these chemicals going into the water. But they do so much to keep that from happening that it's honestly a non-issue, believe it or not.
Yeah, I think that my understanding of the concerns around fracking were initially really large concerns. And then as we've gone on, none of them have been true.
Well, and like I said, it started in the 80s, and I'm sure there were some issues then, But now, I mean, it's so regulated. Like, you wouldn't believe what you have to do just to get a well drilled. And rightfully so, you know?
Yeah, there's the amount of money that's involved. They have to be able to pay for those precautions, surveys, all that kind of stuff to see where the water tables are, and all that kind of stuff. And is oil typically below or above water tables?
It just depends.
It's all of the above?
Yeah, it just depends on where you are. Yeah, I mean, if you're in a floodplain, it could be above and below, It's depending on where that shale lies or what formation you're trying to reach.
So shale's one type of oil. What else? What other formations are there that you're trying to reach?
Mostly shale, because it's changed because they used to just drill a hole in the ground. They didn't even know what they were doing. But you start to realize that you get a lot more fossil fuels when you cut rock, because the rock, the pressure over time that the rock has done to these fossil fuels, it creates a lot more crude and gas from that pressure. So when you crack the shale, crack the rock, it releases more, And it's all different depths in different parts of Texas, or even throughout different parts of the country. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sure that Texas is the area you know best, but like what kind of different factors in soils and rocks and different things do we have to deal with just here in Texas?
So there are a bunch of different formations of shale, which is the rock that contains, all of the different oil and gas and minerals, and it's all different. It's all, we call it petroleum because it's all one big list of different things. But the biggest shale formation at the moment is the Eagleford, and the depths on that go all over the place. And it's all throughout Texas, which is kind of unique.
When you say the depths go all over the place, I mean, are you saying you could have oil 500 feet down or 5,000 feet down?
Yeah, I mean, it goes from 4,000 to 14,000 feet, and it goes up and down. Like wherever you are geographically, it changes.
And is it consistent by region, or it can be on one well is one depth, and the next well,
absolutely,
a couple miles down the road you can be at 5,000 here and 14,000 the very next well?
Even just in West Texas, it changes so much. And the Eagleford Shale goes all the way from South Texas to West Texas, all the way up to College Station here, which is just north of us. Even like over to Waller. You know, it's kind of all over Texas. There's not much in North Texas, but I mean, they haven't found it yet, I guess. Yeah. But
isn't that kind of another thing that keeps happening with oil is that every time they think that we've figured out how much oil we have, they discover more?
Yeah, because they keep trying. They keep doing different depths and trying to figure out, you know, what can we draw from certain depths. I mean, certain shales are more popular at certain times in certain regions.
That's an interesting development in the fact that we don't know how much we actually have at this point is what it seems like from the looking that I did.
Yeah.
Because back in the 70s, there was big problems.
Yeah, because they didn't have the technology.
Yeah, and so in 73 and 74, we had the first oil crisis caused by OPEC.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was back in the 50s, 1940s, 1950s. The U.S., the U.K., Russia all started trying to exploit Middle Eastern oil. And when I say exploit, the reason I say that use that term is because the folks in the Middle East did not have the technologies to pull the oil out of the ground themselves. And so all of the major players from around the world were trying to get in there, and that's what started really making the Middle East more of a hotspot than it had been as far as politics, war, big money games like oil.
Yeah, if you got a hot commodity, everybody wants it, right?
Yeah, so in 73, the Yom Kippur...
It's so easy to get it there, man.
What's that?
It's so easy to get it there.
What does that mean? What's so easy?
You just punch a hole in the ground and oil comes
there?
up in certain areas. Yeah, I mean, it's so... Because their ground is not as rocky. Their soil's not as hard to get through as ours is.
We know...
It's mostly desert, right?
Yeah, it's mostly desert, but what's underneath the sand?
I mean, I guess the sand has crushed the rock down.
Compacted?
Yeah, and I think this being sand, it made the shale more full of fossil fuels. I don't know. I'm not a geologist, guys, but that's just my guess, you know?
Okay. So in 73, the trigger of that first oil crisis was the Yom Kippur War between Israel and a bunch of the Arab states. It was led by Egypt and Syria, and that prompted OPEC to play oil against their political rivals or people who were supporting Israel as they saw it. And so on the 17th of October in 73, OPEC really decided they were going to shut down production in certain capacities and then flat out embargo exporting oil to a lot of the Western countries that were supporting Israel.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate for us because after that, they controlled the market of oil.
Yeah. And so by December of 73, OPEC had reduced output by 25%, causing a global supply shortfall. Saudi Arabia was one of the biggest players there, and they were like leading this charge of like, we need to do this because of what's going on with Israel.
Yeah, it was more greed than that, I think, though, honestly. These sheikhs started putting themselves up, and which, you know, in a place where you haven't had a lot of money, sure, that's going to happen, right?
And that was really brand new then. I mean, you're talking about 30 years in of them starting to really have money because of oil. That made a huge price surge when they did that. And
they could control the market, honestly, and they still are trying to. But I think I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think being energy independent for us would be a great thing.
Yeah. So prices went from $3 a barrel in early 73 to $12 a barrel by early 74. Doesn't seem like much by today's standards, right, but that's a massive jump. It caused stagflation in the United States. I mean, we had some other economic issues that were going on here that combined with, but it really hit us hard. Inflation in the U.S. went to 11% in 1974. GDP slowed and unemployment rose.
By comparison, what is it now? 6.5%?
Unemployment?
Inflation?
Or inflation?
Yeah.
No, it's like 3 something.
Okay, but it was around.
It went up to like 6 during the end of Biden's.
Yeah, during Biden. Yeah.
But it's about 3.5, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me. I mean, I could be off on that, but that's my.
It's from 3 to 6, but yeah,
perception of where
that's huge. That's a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah. so that, it causes some panic buying. It causes gasoline shortages. It causes, I think they did something where they had odd numbers on your license plate could get gas on one day of the week, and even numbers could get it on the next day of the week, and every other day you were able to fill up.
Yeah.
And there was just lines at the gas stations, apparently.
I remember seeing some videos from, especially the Northeast. People could not get gas, and they waited days in line.
The U.S. stock market fell 40% between 1973 and 74, partly due to the energy crisis.
Yeah. And that was before the crash in the 80s. That's crazy.
Yeah. There was a second oil crisis when Iraq and Iran went to war. Iraq invaded Iran in 1980. Actually, is it 70? Yeah. Yes, in 1980, September of 1980. And that took a high-end production of barrels of oil of 5.2 million barrels per day by Iran to down under 1 million, and then down even lower than that when the war got really going. Yeah,
because even there, it's not cheap to drill.
Well, and they were attacking some of the oil facilities as well.
That too, yeah.
So globally, it dropped the oil production by 4 to 5%. On a global scale, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's big.
So that jumped prices from $13 a barrel in 1978 to $34 a barrel by 1981. And right after that, they briefly hit $40 and $50 a barrel. So pretty massive spikes.
Which, yeah, and I just want to put in perspective, when COVID hit, oil was down below $20 a barrel.
Wow, because nobody was going anywhere.
Yeah, nobody did anything. And I couldn't find work for 3 years in the oil field. And I have to say, I was warned against going into this industry when I first started doing it because, you talk about roller coaster ride. This industry is up or it's down. There's really no in between.
And that affects everything that touches it, right?
Right, yeah. Transportation, water, disposal.
Guys that do the legal work to find out
yeah.
who owns the rights.
Airports, just think about it. It's everything. Everything depends on gas or some way to make your cargo, or I don't know.
Well, just to tie a bow around the oil crisis is there. All of those things that happened kind of exposed that Western economies were completely dependent on oil and they were not self-sufficient. And there was a pretty intense deindustrialization of the United States and Europe. And a lot of the wealth got kind of transferred to OPEC nations. And that's why you have wealthy Saudis especially, but Emiratis and people in Dubai and all that kind of stuff. That's where their money comes from, is squeezing the rest of the world on oil.
Yeah, and that's, in a nutshell, how they became, the owners of the market.
So that's kind of what I have as far as
global market,
the timeline up to now. We've had a couple of other things that have happened that are more contemporary that I can even remember. One of the things that strikes me, that it stands out to me, is during the Second Iraq War, I was finishing up one of my long stints in college, and I remember walking down the street going home from class one day and seeing in somebody's window, "No blood for oil," a sign in the window, and I thought, well, that's kind of stupid. What are we going to do? Just go over there and take their oil? That doesn't make sense to me. But in hindsight, that was pretty naive, because like we kind of hinted at before, these countries don't have the technological capabilities to produce the oil on their own, and they need Americans, Europeans, Russians to come in and help them do it.
And I can understand why they would not want us to come in and try to steal a piece of the pie, right? But I think it's a mutual beneficial thing, and them just lording it over us is not good either,
Yeah, I just wanted to make the connection that some of the reasons that there's a lot of industries that benefit from war. And oil is definitely one of them when it comes to oil-rich regions being in conflict.
I mean, probably the most, I don't know if it's the most profitable, but the most expensive oil product is jet fuel, which is used in every war.
Yeah, and you continue to see budding conflicts over oil today. I mean, right now, one of the countries that most people couldn't find on a map is Azerbaijan.
Right.
It's located just to the south of Russia, in between the Caspian Sea to the east of Azerbaijan, and then to the west of Azerbaijan is the nation of Georgia, and then the Black Sea on the other side, if that gives you any kind of geographical reference point. But Azerbaijan has always been one of the largest producers of oil, even though they're a small country. And right now, Russia has been kind of poking at them and kind of building up some forces on the border. Russia already has forces in the nation of Georgia, as they say, illegally. But I mean, Russia does that in a lot of their former Soviet states.
Yeah, and that's where Russia initially found oil, I think, in the late 1800s. Sorry.
So that was like their first, because Azerbaijan was part of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union,
right?
And so
late 1850s, I think.
So that was their first big hit, huh?
Yeah, and I mean they have a bunch of reserves. I think they're struggling right now because they're focusing on this war, and they don't have any funds to really try to compete on the global scale.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of any other. I mean, of course, the first Iraq War was when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and that was the oil basically that people said that he wanted from them. What other conflicts have popped up over oil in recent memory? Not many others I can think of. I know that Nigeria has a ton of oil.
Yeah, mostly untapped, kind of like Canada, really. But I don't think there's been any wars fought over that.
There's been not necessarily any wars there, but there's certainly been a lot of colonial influence trying to get the production going there.
Sure.
And I know BP for sure has tried to be in there, and there's been a lot of back and forth with different regimes that have had power in Nigeria, bringing in the Europeans, kicking them out, bringing in the Europeans, kicking them out, kind of thing.
I honestly think it's just because it's cheaper to get the blood diamonds than it is to get the oil.
I don't know. They have them in Sierra Leone. Do they have diamonds in Nigeria?
I don't know. I guess I was overgeneralizing Africa. Sorry.
Same kind of region, generally speaking. Nigeria is a little bit farther down the coast, but
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Probably. I mean, it's one of those things. And I keep hinting at this because people don't understand really how expensive it is to really get good oil from a certain place, right? Get the numbers that we're getting now. It's and you have to take years to line up all the permits and everything, and you have to lease people. You have to lease people's lands.
You have any kind of breakdown of what you think it would cost just to put in one well?
$10 million, roundabout.
And that includes permitting and that kind of thing?
Maybe. And that does not include wages of the people working it.
That's just infrastructure.
Yeah, mostly. And what I do is the upstream sector of oil and gas, which is everything that goes into before you get the permits to even start drilling the well.
So I buy a piece of land if I'm Big Oil, and I come to Mike Irvin and I say, "Hey, Mike, I just bought this piece of land. I need to know if I have the mineral rights."
Yeah. Or I get just the common Joe will call me like, "Hey, how much of the minerals do I own?" Somebody's contacting me. They want to buy my minerals, And what I do is I basically, we call it like a run sheet on a property, a tract of land. And what we do is we find, the most recent deed that you received, and we take it back from there to who sold it to you, and then who sold it to them, and then who sold it to them.
But what are we looking for on that series of ownership transfers on the run sheet?
Well, there's a lot of things. So, you guys obviously know what a mortgage is on a property. Mm-hmm. If a mortgage is not released, you don't own anything, right? So you have to look at all the deeds of trust, all the right-of-ways, these are a lot of terms I'm throwing out, but there's a lot of things that are involved. Your great-grandfather could have sold the minerals underneath the right-of-way, the road going across your land or to your land, and you had no idea, right? Even though you're living on that land. But there's a big difference between the surface of the property and the mineral ownership of the land. And minerals are, everything beneath the surface. And the surface is just your property itself. I think a lot of people kind of get the short end of the stick as far as that goes, especially now, because it's rare that you get minerals when you buy property, especially when you have, a bunch of acres of land. It's not so rare in town, which we were talking about this the other night. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a mineral reservation on my deed when it was sold to me, and you didn't either on yours, but we would have to run all of those deeds back to the patent where the Mexican government gave us the land.
You always have to go back that far?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You have to, and you run into certain circumstances where people don't even know they own minerals, and they haven't been leased since the 1970s. Somebody missed it, it's crazy.
So is that the same in every state?
No. So Louisiana is different. And I don't think there are any others that are different, but Louisiana, when you convey property to someone, it changes. The minerals change hands
every time.
10 years. It takes 10 years, and then it goes to the next person.
Oh, okay, wait. So if I buy a piece of property from you, you still own the mineral rights for 10 years?
For 10 years.
Why is that?
After 10 years,
but why? But what's that about? Why does that make sense?
I don't know, honestly, but I guess it gives them the opportunity to make money off of that if there's oil being drilled on it.
Weird.
Or if you're pulled into some well for the next 10 years.
It's got to be some...
It's better than nothing, I guess, but...
It's got to be some remnant of French law, you would think.
I honestly don't know. I mean, I've run title in Louisiana, but I'm not an expert.
But if I'm in California, it could be the same. I own the soil, but I don't own the minerals?
Yeah, if it all depends on the deed that was written,
Wow, that's wild.
And it takes someone that knows what they're doing to even understand whether minerals are reserved or conveyed. Honestly, it took me.
So can you do that entire run back on a piece of property all the way back to the Mexican government and find no mention of minerals being?
You can.
And so that just means it was never addressed.
It's never happened to me in 15 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What percentage of the time would you say that there is no separate reserve when people buy a piece of property, the oil rights are coming with it? Is it often?
Right now
Yeah.
or throughout history?
Right now.
Right now, there's no minerals being conveyed. If you want to get them, you got to pay a premium for sure. I really don't see it much anymore. And in certain counties, like especially East Texas, there were banks and bigwigs that bought minerals from everyone. So they own most of the county. Their estate owns most of the county today, and those deeds were in the 20s.
If I wanted to go buy some piece of property way out in the middle of nowhere, north of Giddings out there somewhere,
you could probably get the minerals a little cheaper, but you'd still have to pay way more.
So let's say it's 10 acres. And 10 acres today, just roundabout, is probably worth about $3 million if there's nothing on it, right?
Yeah.
Right about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends.
Depends on where it is.
Depends on where it is, yeah.
Let's just say the property's worth $10 million, okay?
Okay.
No, I said 10. 10 acres. Let's say it's worth $3 million. Okay, let's say it's worth that. What on top would I be having to pay for the mineral rights on something like that?
Like I said, it's dependent on where you are.
Yeah, give me the range. Like, what could it cost on the low end and the high end?
High end 10 times.
10 times the property value?
Yeah.
Holy
low
moly.
end twice.
Low end is twice the property value.
Yeah. Just because, especially, and that's in this area, because there is a lot of oil and gas drilling, just everything going on in this area, Fayette County, Washington County, Burleson County, goes all the way from, Bryan, Texas, basically to Waller, and then down to Fayetteville, LaGrange, that area.
Does it go as far as like Corpus?
I've never worked in Corpus. I know there's a lot in Beaumont. So I think that's kind of where it starts. Like you said earlier, once you start getting close to the Gulf, there's not a whole lot of activity in those the Gulf areas.
That's surprising to me, though, the 10 times figure of the property value. That's just insane.
Yeah, and I mean, those are numbers in West Texas, which could be 100 times. Because there are some
proven reserves.
Yeah, because that stuff has been drilled for over 100 years,
And so when you are, let's say you're out in Midland in that area and where all the action's happening, if you are using this one oil well for a very long time and it seems to be pretty much to the point where it's not really producing anymore, what happens if you shut that well down 15 years later and you go to open that thing back up? Is there going to be more oil in the ground? Is it kind of a seep kind of a thing, or how's that work?
Well, and that really depends. I mean, if you're looking at old wells, they're probably going to start fresh because now they have the technology to do it much better.
Does start fresh mean they go down in the same hole and just do it better?
It just depends. Like there are some old wells, especially out in Fayette County. It's the Austin Chalk, which is short distance, very short, and they keep going in and reworking those old wells. And honestly, it's kind of a scummy practice, and I'm not calling anybody out here, but what they're doing is they're reworking these old wells to keep leases held. So I guess I need to start with the leasing process.
Sure.
Okay. So first of all, you have to go in, and I've done this many times. This is probably one of the things I'm best at doing, and it's kind of a rarity nowadays, but you go in and you have a prospect of land, right? It's a giant area that the oil company, who's your client, is trying to produce, for the lack of a better word. What they're doing is you have to go in, you have to look at production because there's so much production going on everywhere in Texas. Old production and even relatively new production, which could lapse, right? So what we do is we do lease checks first. So we check to see if there are leases that are held by production. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. There's a website that you can go to, and first time I got on it, it kind of blew my mind. It's really kind of, I wouldn't say it's easy to do, but it's user friendly. You can get on the map that they have. It's a GIS map that you can type in. So your property has an abstract number, which is like the area that.
So I have a piece of property.
Describing this well. So,
yeah. So let me see if I can help here. So I own a piece of property.
You're in a county.
I own a piece of a big prospect area.
Yeah.
I can't really afford to mine it myself. Mike, you're the big oil company. You want to come lease it from me.
Right.
What does that process look like? First of all, how much do you have to pay me on a royalty percentage?
Yeah. So what we have to do first is we have to make sure that there's not production on the property, right? And there could be. A lot of the time there is. And this is old production. We're talking, I've seen leases that are still producing from the 40s, And to do that, you have to go on the Railroad Commission website. You have to search by your abstract number. You have to, find your property. And then you look at the wells that are on it, see if they're producing. And then you run back and you see the lease, when it was taken, if it's still being held. So when you take a lease, you lease it for a certain amount of time. You lease the royalties, which is, the mineral interest. But what you get off of a producing well is your royalty interest, right? So the highest percentage you can get on a lease, really, and I mean, I've seen higher, but it's such a rare thing that I wouldn't even mention it. The most you can get is a quarter of what's being produced.
So
Just on your property.
So that would, if I'm again in this scenario, I'm the landowner, I could get a quarter of the profit.
You can. That's rare though. That's the highest.
More typical would be
20%.
Okay, and then on the low end, 15.
Yeah, 16% is probably the lowest I've ever seen.
Okay, so right around 20 is typical.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so I would lease you, big oil company, Mike Irvin. How long would the lease be good for?
Leases are typically 3-year leases.
Okay,
but if you go back in history, they'd be up to 30-year leases. Usually 5-year leases, sometimes 10-year leases.
So when 30-year leases were probably common a long time ago?
I mean, yeah, 30 is not common, but 5 and 10-year leases were very common in the 50s and 60s. And what that lease does is it holds your property to be drilled on until all the ducks are in a row, until you start producing. So you have that certain amount of time, 5 years, 10 years, nowadays it's 3 years, to actually start producing a well, not on my property, but with my property pooled. Does that make sense?
So you're the big company. I'm the person who owns it.
Yeah.
So there's a pool of properties that could be mine and 3 other people's that you're working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you just have to be pumping oil from one of those to keep the lease active.
No, you have to have 50%.
50% of the wells.
50% of the mineral ownership to keep that well, to start that well. Because so many people are just against even trying to lease your property. So, they gave the oil company a little grace by saying, hey, as long as you get 50%, we know you're trying, right? So you have to get a collective 50% of all the minerals owned underneath all of those joint properties. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're kind of implying that there would be some incentive for the oil company to hold stuff and not produce from it at certain points.
Well, they're going to do it, whether you're in on it or not. That's what a lot of people don't realize. And they might as well take a check because the oil company will go around you if you don't.
The property owner might as well take a check.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking is you're saying as long as they're getting 50%, they're trying. And when you say they're trying, that implies there may be some reason that they would want to hold a lease but not produce from it.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're an oil company and you can only get one person that owns minerals under this property, and that's all you had to do to drill a well, you do that every time, right? Because it's such a pain to get everyone else that owns on board to lease. I don't think people understand how much of a pain that is. But.
So maybe I'm missing some of the point here. So you're saying on one piece of property there could be multiple people that own interests in that?
Oh yeah, I've seen thousands of people under one property.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah, sorry, I guess I should explain that a little better. So the minerals are, and I mean the surface is the same way. Like if you have a family of 20 people and your dad dies, doesn't have a will, it's split up between your mom and your 20 siblings. So even the surface could be broken out like that. That's not really normal, but
the court would more likely force you to sell the surface. They're not going to force you to sell the minerals because that can be more easily divided by percentage.
Yeah, I mean, that's your God-given right.
Gotcha. That makes a whole lot more sense.
And if you have minerals, we call it an executive interest, which means you have to be leased in order for this well to be drilled. At least 50% of it has to be leased. But like I was saying, if there's 1,000 people that have to be leased, if you get 500, you can drill that well.
Wow. Okay. So this is all coming more clear now. So
yeah, sorry, I guess I should have.
So let's say there's 100 people that have an interest in my piece of property that I own the surface, but I only have a few shares of the mineral rights.
Yeah.
It has to, if there's 100 shares, 50 of the shares on that property have to agree to the lease for you to be able to drill.
Right.
Complicated.
It is. It's a lot more complicated
and
than people realize.
What is the most number of interested parties you've seen on a specific piece of property? Thousands?
Yeah, because, you get these banks involved. And then the bank has, 100 board members. And they each have 5 kids, right? So, I mean, it just splits and splits. And every time one of those kids dies, it splits into 4 more kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and they just keep passing down their oil interests from all these different properties?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, one of the most extreme examples that I ever saw was down in South Texas, in Karnes County, which was where I started kind of working, Wilson and Karnes County, which is not all the way on the border, but it's pretty close to the border. And there was a guy, I can't remember his name for the life of me right now, but he went around during the Depression and bought mineral interest from every landowner in the area. And, I mean, it was, from 1/16 to 3/4 of the mineral interest.
And what area was this?
South Texas.
Wow.
Wilson and Karnes County. And everyone was so poor at the time that they didn't realize, hey, I just need some money, so I'm going to give them some of my mineral interest. But when it came time in the 2010, somewhere around that area, when I was down there, I mean, almost every document in the courthouse had this guy's name on it,
Jeez.
because he owned that much. And he was a crooked guy. Like, he just went around and he was pretty much a carpetbagger during the Depression,
Where was he from?
Man, I don't know.
You say carpetbagger, that indicates he might have been a northerner.
Yeah, maybe. And, we got local folklore from the ladies in the courthouse on some of it. But, and we found out that he ended up committing suicide and didn't leave a will. So,
what?
Yeah, all of his family inherited this. And he actually, so when I was talking about mortgages earlier, there's a reason for that, because if someone has a mortgage out on a property and they die, they don't have a will, it goes to the bank, right? That certain interest goes to the bank. The money that they owe the bank goes to a certain percentage of their estate. So the bank owned all of this property, certain interest in all of this property for a long time too. So it gets really thick sometimes. And
Wow.
That's usually South and West Texas where it's rough, but East Texas is crazy too, because East Texas is where the earliest mineral conveyances really started.
Huh.
Yeah.
And so on one specific tract of land, what is the most time you've had to spend tracking all this stuff down?
Okay, so a typical run sheet on a tract of land would take me about a month to do,
Mm-hmm.
because, there's typically about 300 documents or instruments is what we call them that you have to assemble. And then you put them in, chronological order, and then you have to look at it. And then what we do is we make a mineral ownership report, which shows the mineral ownership. And then we have to figure out who owns the surface too, which could be complicated, could be easy. Usually it's one person that ends up owning the surface. Usually. Not always. But the biggest one I ever had was down south. And it was that guy I was talking about. We did one on his, and it was about 1,000 documents long. And it took me probably 6 months to do.
Goodness.
Yeah.
That is tedious, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like everybody sees the Landman show. Like, oh, yeah, this guy's just out there drinking beer all day and going to the strip club and getting captured by the...
Well, but in the show, he's not really even functioning as a landman. He's functioning as the COO. He's functioning as the guy who makes everything happen just below the CEO. And it's called landman, but that's not what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, being a landman is all about the mineral interests.
Yeah, it's all about going to the courthouse, pulling documents. It's about really putting a history book together on a tract of land. That's basically what we do. And then once we figure out who owns it, we'll go and talk to these people and try to lease a property. And like I said, that's not always the easiest thing to do either.
So I want to talk about how natural gas has come in just a few minutes, but I got to just mention a few things about our old buddy, John D. Rockefeller, real quick.
Okay.
When Standard Oil was torn apart by the antitrust system and judgment by the Supreme Court, He retained a lot of his wealth, like was said here, but he also had to figure out where to invest because he couldn't pour it all into these companies anymore because he was a stakeholder, not the guy running the show.
Right.
And so one of the places that he did, the main place actually that he did that was into the medical field and in medical education and in pharmaceuticals, because what he figured out was that oil products could be used to help bind together pills. And so before he did all this, and what we're going to talk about here in a minute, the medical industry was basically homeopathic and natural remedies and not very regulated. And so there was a lot of changes that he influenced, some good, some bad. In 1910, he enlisted a guy named Abraham Flexner. He and Carnegie were kind of going in on this together. And Flexner was a former high school teacher. He was not a doctor or a scientist, but he was the one they tapped for some reason, because I think it's because he was willing to find the results that they wanted. And in this big report that he did, he evaluated 155 of the medical schools in North America, and he recommended closing or reforming low-quality or proprietary schools. He suggested that medical schools be affiliated with universities rather than be on their own, which is probably a good thing.
Sure.
That lab-based scientific training, bacteriology, pathology, and hospital partnerships for clinical experience be implemented. Probably also a good thing. Prioritized scientific medicine based on germ theory, dismissing the non-allopathic approaches as quackery. So there we start to get into a little bit of where I would protest just a little bit, because there's a lot of things that are natural that have healed people throughout the ages.
Sure.
You know, we soon thereafter, after that report came out, he provided over $100 million in grants to schools that did things the way that he wanted them to do. The medical schools conforming to his way were given these big grants. That's equivalent to billions of dollars today.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, I was going to say.
Yeah, in the 19-teens, that was a ton of money.
There had to be some good that came out of that, though, right? I mean, not all nefarious.
Yes and no. I mean, but it's the one-way approach that's bad. A lot of these reforms are good, but it's that one-way approach excluding the natural. It's when you can't make a profit off of the natural because it can't be patented, and you can make a profit off of a pill that we get into a profit motive that takes things the wrong way.
Yeah, I get that.
One of the big beneficiaries was Johns Hopkins. They just started receiving annual grants from the Rockefeller Foundation in 1913 for their clinical programs. Vanderbilt, Yale, and University of Chicago were also severely reformed with Rockefeller support. I mean, completely redone. By 1935, medical schools in North America had dropped from 160 to 66, and all of them were university affiliated and standardized at that point. Another little note here: black medical schools plummeted, meaning for black people only, plummeted from 7 to 2. Howard and Meharry exacerbating racial disparities in healthcare at that time. Women's access improved because they standardized some of the care that women needed to receive.
Which hadn't been done before, I'm sure.
Right. Specifically tailored toward women. I'm not sure when the big changes came as far as like the monthly flow that they go through and keeping some of that cleaned up as far as medical changes, but I mean that's a huge thing. That and indoor plumbing really changed the lives of women as far as sanitary options.
I believe
for
it.
the better.
Yeah.
It elevated U.S. medicine way up above in the view of the rest of the world. It elevated U.S. medicine, but the bad byproduct of that is the holistic practices were almost eliminated. They're definitely stigmatized, and they were really, really pushed to the side. Part of that Flexner report, it embedded pharmaceutical training in the curriculum for all of these medical universities and stuff. That wasn't part of the curriculum before Rockefeller stuff in the big report.
Yeah, so if it makes more money for Rockefeller, it gets pushed along.
This whole thing was a big shift from holistic to interventional.
Yeah.
And the pharmaceutical industry was created right at this time. Synthetic vitamins, antibiotics and penicillin, good stuff there.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's why I said there has to be something good come out of it. But
there's a lot of good things. I'm sure that there's some of the standardization, the science-based testing of methods. I'm sure all of that was great. But to me, it's just that, again, that monopolistic tendency that we see with Rockefeller. He wants to exclude people who are not doing it his way.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of that rolling into what we just went through with COVID. I mean, it had to be this one intervention. Remdesivir was the only thing you could take in the hospital, and that turned out to be basically a death sentence combined with a ventilator.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, we see all the problems with our age people now after taking the vaccine. Heart problems.
Big
time. Direct correlation.
Turbo cancers, all kinds of stuff wrong with that vaccine. Don't take it, people.
I really wish I wasn't forced to.
Yeah.
I say I was forced to, but I was broke. Like I was talking about earlier, I couldn't find work, and I started a food truck, which, God bless me with the ability to do that. But I had to go to this festival, and they made me do it.
They wouldn't let you sell food there if you hadn't had your test.
Exactly.
I'm just lucky I was working at home, because if we'd all been in the office, I'm sure my company would have made us too. And they continued to check on us for almost 2 years after that, asking if we had had all of our most recent shots. And my response was always just, none of your business.
And I didn't take it for 2 years. Didn't get COVID. 3 days later, got COVID.
As soon as you took the shot?
As soon as I took the shot.
Yeah, go figure that.
At least I didn't get any of the boosters, luckily.
So, where does natural gas fit into this story?
Okay, so there are, essentially 2 different things that companies drill for. Oil, crude oil, and natural gas. Oil is generally easier to get and contain than natural gas, but oil is also a lot more toxic, So natural gas is a lot easier, or it's a lot better for the environment, if you could say that.
When you burn it?
When you burn it, when you use it for other things. And I really don't know a whole lot about that.
But just by the nature of liquid versus gas, oil is easier to deal with once you have it out of the ground.
Right. Easier to transport, all of that. It's not as explosive, for lack of a better word. But natural gas is a lot cheaper to obtain. Not cheaper to transport, which is kind of strange. But it's a lot easier to clean, to get down to what you need it for.
Yeah, and so natural gas versus oil, what do we have more of in the States?
Definitely more natural gas. Natural gas is generally cheaper to drill for. And the price of it is definitely cheaper than gas per barrel.
And you said $10 million to start a new oil well. What generally speaking, but what would it be for a gas rig?
It just depends.
Again, we're general.
Yeah, and I really don't know if there's that big of a difference.
On the initial?
I mean, I'm sure there is, but I wouldn't say it's like half, Probably, 2/3 the same price. Because it all just... And this is another thing a lot of people don't realize, is that there are only a handful of active rigs in Texas at a certain time, right? And I think it's usually like 6 to 10. And they travel around to drill where they need to be.
And when we say rigs, that's the actual act of drilling the well itself.
Yeah, and it's all the heavy-duty machinery.
And those are a lot higher up in the air than the
directional
pumps.
Drills. Yeah, if you see one that's way up there, It's a rig. You see the pump jacks all the time.
Yeah,
but that's not the initial drill.
And so when you drill for oil or gas, and you get where you need to be as far as the drilling process goes, how then do they come along and put a pump on that? Because they have to cap it off, right? First.
Yeah, they have to cap it, contain it, pressurize it. Like I said, it's really not my specialty, but I've been on well sites and kind of seen. I know a lot of guys who are engineers and directional drillers, and it's a lot more complicated than I can explain, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But they're really good at doing it. I know that. And it's so highly regulated that it has to be done well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've heard people in the oil industry say that opening scene, one of the opening scenes there on the Landman series where the guy's hitting the well with the hammer is pretty unrealistic.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not a roughneck, but I know that's unrealistic for sure. I mean, I watched like the first 2 episodes of that show, and I'm not hating on the show. It's a pretty good.
It's entertaining.
It's definitely entertaining. But I mean, he wakes up and he's kidnapped by the cartel, and I was like, okay. And it's funny because I spent a lot of time in South Texas. That's where I kind of cut my teeth, and I was traveling roads, checking out all kinds of properties for that well risk assessment that I was telling you about. Yeah. And I saw so many illegals. But I mean, it's not a normal thing,
But no cartel guys?
No cartel guys, no safe house, you know what I mean? And that's fine. Like, hey, that's entertainment, dude. I'm not saying that it's so unrealistic I can't watch it, but
I'm kidding.
I just want people to know that that's not realistically what a landman does, generally.
No, definitely not. But the volatility, I think they do a good job of explaining the volatility of the oil market in that show. I don't know how far you got into it, but at one point he was talking about, one of the lawyers, I think, made the point that, that just skyrockets the price, doesn't it? And he was like, yeah, but you don't want it to get too high.
Right. Bad for everybody if it gets too high.
Right. And if it gets too low, then it's bad for everybody as well. So you kind of got to stay in the sweet spot.
That's the problem. Everybody's so greedy. They want to drill. And
that lowers the price, right?
Exactly. That's what I try to tell people is like, Trump's drill is not always good for my job,
Drill,
especially.
baby, drill.
Yeah. And I'll say something that is totally, opposite of what I just said, is that every time a Democrat has been elected, I've lost my job. Every single time. And I think it's because of uncertainty. Because you've seen this, you're a student of politics, but every Democrat says they're going to cut down on oil consumption. But does it really happen?
No.
They
just cut down on new leases.
Exactly. And what that does is it gives the oil companies a reason to say, the Democrats are making it harder for me to drill, so we're going to raise the prices. Right? So it's a total push and pull.
So, in fact, when the Democrats do that, it's making oil companies even richer?
I think so. I mean, that's just a theory that I have, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah, definitely makes sense.
But I will say, I still, every time a Democrat gets in office, I lose my job.
You think
every Christmas.
Do you think that's just the rhetoric, or do you think that's an actual fear of them shutting down new leases?
Yeah, I think it's a fear of some kind of overstep of the presidential boundary in government to where they could actually shut them down. But once they realize it's not going to happen, I get a call back in March, it's always good.
Well, oil is often vilified by environmentalists, let's just say broadly, because oil is a dirty, not the financial side, but just the act of drilling, pumping, and transporting oil is a dirty business because oil is dirty stuff.
Right.
And so if oil does, like we talked about a little bit earlier, if oil does get in your water table, it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that the industrial age kicked off in the 1800s, was wildly accelerated by the combustion engine. And a rising tide has floated all boats when it comes to worldwide health and poverty status for people all over the place. The wealth that has been produced by the oil industry has raised the standard of living all over the world.
Absolutely. So many types of jobs that could not be possible without it.
Jobs and just power. I mean, just
power. Yeah.
Any country that has oil is going to have more literal power, and I don't mean political, I mean energy production, which is going to allow their industries to function more efficiently and better at lower costs and produce more goods. And the more of that happens around the world, the better it is for people in general. Right,
and the better it is for the U.S. And I still strongly believe we should be energy independent. There's really no reason. Yeah, well, we are and we aren't, because of lobbyists, basically.
But if we were allowed to just drill, baby, drill. If we were allowed to just drill as much as we wanted to, we would be energy independent, wouldn't we?
Yeah, and I mean, we are allowed to do that. But for some reason, it's still considered a global market. I don't know if we're just worried that we don't have enough reserves, or that we would burn through our reserves too quickly.
So we still import oil.
We do, yeah, at an alarming rate.
What kind of percentage is domestic versus imported?
I mean, the last I heard was 50-50.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if that's true.
I thought we were much more energy independent than that.
Well, and we're definitely stepping it up because of Trump. But right now, people will tell you, "Oh, we're drilling." But what incentive does the oil company have to do that when oil prices are as low as they are? Right? Because it costs a lot of money to drill.
Where are we at per barrel right now?
We're hovering in the 60s, 70s, and 100's too high, which is where it stayed for a while.
It was in the late 20-teens?
Yeah. 20-teens to 2019. That's about where we were.
It crashed down to $20 a barrel in COVID.
Yeah, which I don't even know how that's possible.
What's the range of things are good in the oil industry price per barrel? Like 50 to 70 or 50 to 80 or?
I think ideal is 70 to 80.
Okay.
Whether they'd like to say that or not. Like, of course, they want to hit 100, but
ideal. What is a wider range that's still functional?
Okay, so even at 30, we could sell. But when you get under 30, it's slim pickings.
And so,
but ideally, you want to be between 60 and 80.
So if it gets down to 30, though, oil companies going to stop producing because it's just not worth it?
Probably not. They're going to try to do what they can do. But you're going to be looking at like skeleton crews. You're not going to have a lot of people working there, And you talk about horrible times in the oil field. You got one crew or two crews that are off and on, and they work ridiculous hours, and they get paid a lot, but they don't get paid health insurance. They don't get paid if something happens to them on the job.
What's ridiculous hours?
62-hour shift probably.
Straight?
Yeah. Yeah, it's horrible. I could make a documentary of how terrible.
At 48 hours no sleep, people are in a bad way.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not going to mention any names, but I've talked to people that have had to work 3 days straight. And then, maybe they get 8 hours off and then go back at it. But they don't mind doing it because they're getting overtime. Time and a half.
I mind. Time and a half, my rear. I mind, man. Sleep is
well, exactly. Important. But when you're there, you don't want to be there as long as you have to be. If you want to go ahead and get it done, work the hard hours. It's crazy, man. Like it is way crazier than people realize out on those rigs. And I know that the regulations aren't, made for that, and it's not supposed to be that way, but it is that way.
And so if that's what's going on out there, that's going to lead to drug dependency.
Absolutely.
And so I've heard the phrase, the oil field's a wild place.
Yeah.
What other kind of
Old
things?
field trash.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just a bunch of crazy guys, isn't it? I mean, what other kind of craziness goes on down there?
Like I said, I've never really worked on the rigs. I mean, I've done certain jobs on the rigs, but I've never worked to drill a rig myself. But I've heard stories from people that I know about how, these guys will do certain drugs to stay up that long, and then when they get their time off, they'll go party, and then they'll go straight back to it.
Like, don't sleep.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a terrible, terrible, vicious cycle.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. You have any stories in your mind that stick out?
I just don't want to.
You can leave names out of it.
No, I think I'm gonna not say it. I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
All right.
But I mean, we're talking about benders for so you're usually 2 weeks on, 1 week off,
mm-hmm.
or 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off. It's a weird shift that they just kind of figure out what kind of person you are, what you can handle. Basically, there is one story about a guy that I know pretty well he was a crew chief of one of these crews, and he drank a Coke that had a bee in it, stung him in the neck, right? Almost killed him. His throat swelled up real bad. And then not only did he get docked pay, he had to pay for his hospital stay to get that figured out. And they're supposed to give them, kind of like an Aflac thing where you have something that happens on site, you're supposed to get paid for that. But didn't happen. And they ended up actually firing him because of it, because it cost them so much money.
And did he win the lawsuit?
No. He didn't have enough money to face the oil company in court,
There's not lawyers lining up to take on those kind of cases?
There is, but these guys have the biggest legal team on the planet, and they'll keep you in limbo for 10 plus years,
Just delay until you get tired of it?
Yeah, until you settle out of court.
Well, that makes me think that the whole... Well, I mean, there's but that way, like we started to talk about in the Landman show, there was an incident where the guy's hitting the thing with the hammer, a bunch of guys get killed. They're paying those guys out, and they're doing that to keep it out of court, so they don't even have to go through that process, right?
Yeah, because if it does go to court and people actually see what's going on, they're going to be shut down.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to get in trouble for even saying all this, but I don't really care. These companies haven't done anything for me. I'm still pretty much where I started 15 years ago, and there's really no place for me to move up. I did start a brokerage of my own, and the stress is just not even worth the job. Not that I don't make good money, but it's not a great industry to be in.
Yeah, at least with
Across
the brokerage, you're your own boss, and you can take on the jobs you want, and not the others. I guess. I mean,
yeah, but the problem is, it's like these companies just have these crazy expectations, and they want you to run this title. And I'm not talking about all companies. Okay, I've worked for great companies, but the people that I worked for when I started my brokerage, I mean, I basically got the job because I didn't have any experience, but they were just like, hey, how much can we throw on this guy? How much can we get him to do for pennies on the dollar, pretty much? And, they were calling me at 2:00 in the morning. I'd have to pick up, tell them about one of the projects that my guy was working on, which I didn't know. How am I supposed to know everything that my guys are working on and why it's not ready? And so, okay. And this was the thing I should have listened to when I got this job. It's like, they were like, hey, we want a full run sheet on West Texas title in 3 weeks. Most West Texas title run sheets take 8 weeks.
Minimum?
I mean, probably at least, 6 weeks minimum. If you want to get everything and you want to do the job correctly, right? But they wanted it in 3 weeks. And they were calling me daily, daily for updates, and it's just like, it's nothing I would ever want to wish on anyone. And I didn't even make that much money because they pinched pennies. You know, I couldn't even pay my guys on time. They didn't even pay me on time.
What kind of people? What do you have to? Who do you have to employ for that kind of thing?
It's just landmen, title guys. You know.
So they're going and chasing stuff down in different counties far away, or
Yeah. But the thing is, they didn't want us traveling because that costs more money, right? But how can I run this title when I can't go to the courthouse and run the district court, run the probate, run all of these things in the county clerk to make sure it's on the level? They had these kids that they were paying nothing, sending them out there. And I had to trust this kid's work that has no experience. You know, it's just like...
So that's not how it is for you anymore, right?
No, not at all.
Do you do it all yourself?
Yeah, for the most part. And they still don't want me to go out west because that is expensive. But they have people that are good landmen that they trust to go run that stuff for me, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, and so now I'm sure you have a better idea of what the wages are supposed to be.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, with the experience that I have, I can get a great wage wherever I go. And I'm lucky in the sense that I've been working for pretty much the same 4 or 5 guys, brokers, for different clients for, you know, the past 10 years. When I first started, though, I lost my job every year. Every Christmas was pretty abysmal around here.
Is that when production just goes way down?
Yeah. And, you know, when you don't have a whole lot of experience, you're the first one to get cut.
Yep, low man always is the first one.
Yeah. So I learned to roll with the punches a lot, and not a whole lot bothers me much anymore. Because I've been fighting for jobs my whole career, really. But I'm at the point, though, where people understand my work and respect my work because I've been doing it for so long. And to be frank with you, I mean, there's so many just bad landmen because it's a job where nobody's micromanaging you. You know, you don't have to punch a clock. You're doing all your work on your own time. And some people are good at that and some people aren't. You know?
So a bad landman is somebody who's going to tell you that minerals are free. That it's all clear. This title's clear. It's all yours, and it's not.
Yeah, exactly. And that can get them in big, big trouble. They can get sued by the oil company, which is not something you ever want to happen. But it'll happen. It's never happened to me because I take the time and I do my work correctly, you know?
Yeah. That's crazy, man. Like, yeah, I guess.
It costs the oil company millions of dollars, you know, one little mistake.
Because they're paying out the wrong person.
Exactly.
Or they didn't have the actual rights to do the work.
Right. They've been paying somebody that they're not going to get the money back for 20 years or something, you know? And what they have to do, which I think is a great thing, but they have to have an account where, like we were talking about earlier, you only have to get 50% of the people leased, right? But the oil company has to have an account where they put all of those funds in for the other 50%. So there's money sitting there for those people if they ever do want to sign a lease or if they ever figure out that they own minerals or whatever.
So if you're on the side of the 50% that didn't agree to the lease, whatever they take out, they still owe you that money.
Yeah. It's just whether or not some of these pig-headed people will come collect it or not. It's kind of funny.
I can't believe people would leave money on the table like that.
Yeah, and I understand it because if I own property, I don't want the oil field tearing up my property, you know. But the fact of the matter is, they're going to go underneath your property. They're not going to touch your surface.
That's something I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
You ever seen the movie There Will Be Blood?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So there's a really iconic scene that everybody pretty much remembers when he talks about the milkshake.
Yeah.
Right? And
I drink it up. Yeah.
My straw goes down in and drinks your milkshake.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That's totally accurate. You're really, I'm not going to call you dumb, but you're missing out on an opportunity if you make the oil field company go around you because
they're going to get it anyway.
They're going to get it. Yeah. No matter what. I mean, and it's so easy to not have them disturb your surface at all. And there are so many regulations in place to where they cannot disturb your water. And if they do, they have to pay you very handsomely. So I don't understand. I mean, I do understand, but I don't understand how skeptical people are now.
Yeah, but the point is, they're going to get it anyway, so you might as well get your money.
You might as well get the money, yeah. And the unfortunate fact is that if you don't own minerals under your property, the oil company can really do whatever they want to your property.
Right.
Unless you get in the deed. So people that are looking for property right now, please pay attention. You have to put in your deed that you control the right to ingress and egress, and that you have a say on where a well will be planted on any previous any subsequent property negotiations. You have to put that in your deed, or you can get screwed over.
So if it's not in the deed,
the mineral owner can just get leased, and the oil company can put it wherever they want. Although you have to, the Railroad Commission in the state of Texas has regulations on where a well can be in relation to your house. You know, any primary residence has to be 200 feet away from any well that's drilled.
It's not that far.
No, it's really not. I mean, it's far enough to not be totally invasive, but you'd still hear everything, see everything that happens.
Yeah.
So if you're buying property and you're not getting some kind of surface rights, you're really making a huge mistake.
Oh, that's pretty interesting stuff. So I think that's most of what we've got on oil.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention too that the United States is really the only country in the world that allows property owners to retain their mineral rights and to profit from them. You know, Scotland is kind of the only other country that can benefit from mineral rights. There are some others that can retain, you know, base mineral rights, but no gold, no silver, no oil and gas. Like the UK,
so everywhere else,
Canada,
the government just nationalizes all of it.
Yeah, the government owns all of it. So I think that's kind of a cool thing, you know.
So you can't even own your own gold on your own property
here in the United States.
No, in other countries.
Well, okay, so the UK, you can own the precious metals, precious minerals, the gold and the silver and things like that, but you can't own the oil and gas.
Got it.
And Scotland is vice versa. The Crown in Scotland owns the precious minerals, the gold and silver. Canada is the only other country where, you know, privatized mineral ownership is actually a thing, but it's very rare. And it's mostly in giant plots of land that are owned by private people.
Yeah, it's a super deep and interesting topic. I mean, oil runs our world basically still until we get another energy source that's going to surpass it. It's going to be the king.
Well, I did kind of want to touch on that just a little bit if we got a minute.
Sure.
So solar and hydro are really the only obtainable green energy options financially. Everything else is way too expensive and more harmful to, you know, our country than even the fossil fuels. But if we could get an affordable solar and hydroelectric energy source going, I think that's where our focus needs to lie.
Well, solar is interesting because we, you know, in the Southwest, we have so much sun that is always beating down, but in most of the rest of the country, we don't necessarily. The problem becomes, how do you transport and store that energy in the places where it's really needed, in places that are often cloudy, like Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, all those big cities in the
Well, that's the problem. It's
north
very
and east.
expensive and kind of impossible to transfer it that far.
Yeah, I don't know about impossible, but today we
Not
certainly don't have
impossible,
the
but
technology.
monetarily, yeah, it's very very tough.
I mean, it could happen. We could get that technology where we're
Yeah.
able to store it somehow.
Hopefully,
Hydro's pretty cool. What about
hydro's the best option.
what about
honestly.
nuclear?
What's that?
What about nuclear?
Well, I mean, obviously the most cost beneficial, the most powerful, but it's just so chaotic, man. You don't know what's going to happen, and I think that's the issue.
I think that's the perception of most people. That
Yeah, I think we've definitely broken ground on that and made a lot of headway. But
I mean, people think about like 3 Mile Island, and people think about Fukushima, Chernobyl.
mm-hmm.
Okay, but that's it. There's really been no other real deaths or problems with that. And Chernobyl was the worst of all of those. There was no deaths on 3 Mile Island, is my understanding. Fukushima, there was some radiation issues, but no direct deaths as a result of what happened there at Fukushima. And that was, all of those are old, super old, back to the 60s type technologies.
Yeah, so you got to think that we've got some better technology to retain it.
Well, my understanding now is they've miniaturized it.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot safer, a lot easier to shut down, a lot easier to cool, a lot less radiation in the water that's used for cooling. And so I think that we have this bad long-term memory of nuclear being so demonized or kind of looked at as so dangerous.
Yeah.
People think nuclear and they see a mushroom cloud. But I think that's one of the ways that we actually can get out of some of the power issues that we face.
Yeah, because I mean, it wouldn't take a whole lot to power the whole, West Coast if we really contained it well and did that.
So we talked about some of the history. We talked about some of the landman stuff, the mineral rights, all that kind of stuff in really great detail. If you guys are interested in something that people want, and we hear from you guys that you want to know about it, maybe we can bring on somebody who has experience on the drilling rigs, talk a little bit more about the actual process of getting it out of the ground. I think that would be an interesting discussion as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you do want that, please drop us a comment. Please also like and subscribe. And thank you for listening to our podcast.
All right. Thanks, guys. This has been the Against the Grain podcast. Appreciate you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.